Welcome to another edition of Unlikely Bible Heroes. We've been taking a journey through the Bible and looking at some people that at least when you met them for the first time were not very likely to be spiritual heroes, and yet they turned into just that. We want to talk in this session about a little boy. A little boy. I don't know what his name was. I'm sure he had a name. I'm sure his mother knew his name. His daddy knew his name. Probably the folks that he played with down the street knew his name. The Bible doesn't tell us his name. And the account that we're going to look at is found in John chapter 6. It's about Jesus feeding thousands of people with just 5 loaves and 2 small fish. It's one of those unique occasions in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John where all 4 of them record this miracle of Jesus. But I think it's even more interesting that only John mentions or calls out this little boy. Matthew, Mark, Luke all mention it, but they don't tell you where the loaves and the fishes came from. Let's look in John chapter 6, beginning in verse 1. Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, the Sea of Tiberias. A great multitude of people followed him because they saw his miracles that he did on the sick ones. And he went up to a mountain and sat there with his disciples, and the Passover was near, a feast of the Jews. Jesus lifted up his eyes and saw a great crowd come to him. And he said to Philip, "Where are we going to buy loaves so that these may eat?" Here's a lot of people. They're not near Walmart or they're not near a grocery store. And he said, "Where are we going to get loaves to feed these people?" The record says he said this to test Philip, for he knew what he was going to do. And Philip said, "Loaves for 200 denarii are not enough for them, that everyone may take a little." Philip basically said, if we use all of our money, they're only going to be able to get a little, and it won't even be enough then. One of the disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, you may be identified that as someone's brother, someone's sister, someone's son, someone's daughter. It seemed Andrew sometimes had an identity problem, but he didn't have an identity problem with Jesus. And it was Andrew that said to Jesus, "There's a boy." Now see, Jesus was talking to Philip, but Andrew gets involved. Andrew said, "There is a boy who has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish." If you go back and look at the literal language of boy or lad, it literally means a little boy or a little lad. And he said, here's a little boy, and he has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes. If he's a small boy, he's probably not carrying Moby Dick around. He's probably not carrying a 50 or 75 or 100-pound fish around. 5 loaves and 2 small fishes. And then Andrew shows us his human side when he said, but what are these among so many? So we've got 5 loaves and 2 fish, Lord, but what are they among so many people? And Jesus said, make the people sit down. There was a lot of grass. The men reclined, about 5,000 in number. Well, you know there wasn't 5,000 men that got away by themselves. So if you had women and children, this was a large crowd. And Jesus took the loaves and gave thanks and distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to those that had sat down, and likewise of the fish. I love this part about the story. As much as they wanted. This wasn't that they all got 1 crumb apiece. They got as much as they wanted. And when they were filled, not just when they'd eaten an appetizer, when they were filled, Jesus said, disciples, gather up the fragments left over so that nothing is left. Nothing is lost. They gathered 12 baskets with fragments of the 5 barley loaves that were left over to those that had eaten. Then seeing the miracle that Jesus did, those men said, "This is truly the prophet, the one coming into the world." Wow. What a great miracle Jesus performs. And it all started with a little boy with 5 loaves and 2 little fish. A little boy among 5,000 grown men. Sometimes we may feel a little bit intimidated. A little intimidated about a lot of things. Maybe it's our age. Maybe it's our education. Maybe it's our status in life. But this little boy proved even a boy among men could be greatly used. A hero in God's kingdom. 5 loaves and 2 small fishes. Verse 9, among so many. It's kind of like Naaman when he had leprosy. He balked initially at going into the River Jordan and dipping 7 times. And finally the servant said, now if he'd asked you to do some great things, what are 5 loaves and 2 small fishes among so many? Andrew asked, what do you have, what I have? What can God do with it? He was willing. This little boy was willing to give all that he had. That may have been what he brought for lunch, and he may have said or thought at least, hey, why didn't the rest of you bring any lunch? But he gave everything that he had. Am I willing to give it all? Am I willing to give all to Jesus? Am I willing to give all in service? Verse 11 proves that when we give, God can multiply. God takes this small amount among so many and he multiplies it. And they're full, and there's 12 baskets left over. And the most amazing, impressive, powerful thing of all of it's found in verse 14. It caused people to believe. Seeing the miracle Jesus did, these men said, this is truly the prophet, the one coming into the world. Where did it start? It started with one little boy. A little boy with 5 loaves and 2 fishes. What's his name? I don't know his name. The Bible doesn't tell his name. 3 of the 4 Gospels don't even mention him. But Jesus knew who that little boy was. And Jesus is just as eager and anxious today to take what you have and what I have to multiply it for his good and his glory so that others might believe. What are you doing with your loaves and your fishes?